Howdy, everybody. Long time no see. Um, it's been a while since I've been able to record. Um, yeah, back in action in a way, kind of. School's starting back up, and life is incredibly busy right now. Time to sit down and record is non-existent at the moment, but I'm finding some time today, and I wanted to, since I unfortunately keep postponing Anomalous America, Indiana. This was a article I had planned on doing kind of as a lead up to that episode for some time now, but never had the time, never found the time to record it. And so yeah, after reading back through some of my material as I was fairly certain I was going to be able to do my episode today, but that didn't work out. I remembered that I really wanted to find the time to read this entire article, and something of this size can be difficult to fit into one of my Anomalous America episodes. So, yeah, here we are. Not quite enough time to record a full episode, but enough time to do one of these smaller articles. Again, thanks for sticking with me through this entire journey, um, and being patient as I find time to record my Anomalous America episodes. Well, yeah, so as you can tell by the thumbnail, The Realms of Darkness. I mean, any title like that is going to grab your attention, especially mine, especially anything from the 1800s. And it's one of those ones I don't even remember clipping or reading. It's probably quite some time now since I originally saw it. But as I was sorting my material, that heading grabbed my attention, and I've read it a few times since, and it's definitely worthy of its own short little video. So, yeah, without further ado, let's jump into the article. As always, thanks for joining me. 1887, The Realms of Darkness. Zoom in a little bit more here for you. The Realms of Darkness. Strange discoveries in the numerous caves and caverns of Indiana. Eyeless fish and animals found in underground dwelling places. The origin of subterranean streams and passages. The history of caves, said Professor Collett, ex state geologist, as the journal reporter seated himself for the regular weekly talk, verges on the realm of mystery. The unknown is always filled with wonders. Solemn silence, utter darkness, and the chilly atmosphere have ever been dread attractions. In song, tradition, story, and religious teaching, every age has borrowed illustration and incident from such dim, uncertain homes of darkness, peopling them with all that a wild imagination can create or desire. In biblical history, a number of caves are mentioned. Strabo speaks of a cavern near Damascus capable of holding 4,000 men. It is to be seen at this day. Modern modern novels abound in descriptions of Syrian and other Oriental caves. The Crusaders related marvelous tales of underground dwelling places. In Walter Scott's novel, The Talisman, is a cave wonderfully described. There is a cave near Aleppo which, it is said, would hold 3,000 horsemen. Another, near Sidon, is described as containing 200 smaller caverns and dens. I believe the first mention of a cave in Scripture is the one into which Lot and his family retired from Zorah after the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Next is the cave of Machpelah, which Abraham purchased to sepulchre his dead. The caves of every quarter of the globe have been used as habitations, places of retreat, temples of religious worship, sepulchres of the dead. Ancient Greece and Rome placed some of their holiest shrines and oracles in shadowy realms where the conditions were darkness and obscurity. The oracles of the Sibyl's cave were long as long as classic story, and Virgil's glimpses of the land of shadows are among the brightest pictures of Augustan glory. Some of the most interesting events of the history of Asia, America, and Europe are connected with caves. Deeds of heart rending disaster and violence are acts of high faith and devotion. The St. Louis group of the Lower Carboniferous age is called the cavernous limestone on account of numerous caves which occur in it and similar calcareous deposits at various places, among which are not only the caverns of Indiana and also Mammoth and other caves in Kentucky, Wyers Cave in Virginia, Howe's Cave in Showery County, New York, Kirkdale in Great Britain, the Grotto of Antiparos in Greece, and the noted caverns of Franconia. Owing to the greatest thickness of the strata of this group of rocks in Indiana, the caverns are here on a grand scale. This limestone forms the surface rocks in many of the counties of Indiana, Putnam, Monroe, Lawrence, Washington, Harrison, and Crawford. Through this region's drops or streams of water have excavated a multitude of underground avenues and canals of all forms and dimensions, branching in endless variety. They did not always exist. Rain and snow, water, charged with gases from the atmosphere, are excited, and pools and brooks collected. I don't know what it said, sorry. A drop of this creeping through a crack, a creek, or a crack of the rock plunges its way by removing a film of carbonate of lime by forming a soluble bicarbonate. This process, in constant action through ages, enlarged the crevasses until drops were filled by seeps. These in ages became brooks, which in the less restless round of unturning time expanded to the volume of creeks, and when cycles and aeons had passed, the single drop had grown to a mighty subterranean river. When such passages became so enlarged that the water did not fill the cavernous space, funnel-shaped sinkholes 50 to 500 feet in diameter and 10 to 30 in depth after a rainfall collected heavy air charged with still heavier carbonic acid and gas and continued the solvent process already begun. At remote parts of a cave, this gas exists to an almost dangerous extent. Hence, the air action with the cave is more powerful than at the mouth when pure air has access. The standpoint of the different stages of these streams and pools of water may often be seen recorded on the side of walls as niches and moldings. Pebbles and their matrix of clay indicate the direction in which the water flowed and the rate of motion. When water holding bicarbonate of lime in solution drops slowly from the ceiling, by which it is exposed to the air long enough to allow the escape of an equivalent of carbonic acid gas, the lime is deposited in the form of carbonate. If the deposit occurs so that the accumulation takes place from above downward in the form of an icicle, it continues what is termed a stalactite, that is, a stone icicle. But if it forms on the floor of a cave and accumulates from below upward, it is known as a stalagmite, a drop of stone. Stalactites and stalagmites frequently meet and connect the roof and the floor and form a pillar or column. If the solution which forms the stalactite and stalagmite is free from oxide of iron or mud, it will be translucent or milky white. Any salt of iron gives a dirty yellow or dark brown color. In the accompanying stratus, small deposits and concretions of pyrites and sulfide of iron exist. This decomposes on exposure to the air, and gypsum or plaster of Paris is formed. This, when crystallized, is translucent, or finely tinted masses, is known as alabaster, and is wrought into vases and other parlor ornaments. In the dry chambers or avenues in which plaster of Paris occurs, beautiful rosettes are sometimes formed as the mineral in crystals pushes out spurs, which aggregate look like petals, stamens, and pistils of some quaint flower frozen in snow bright whiteness. Large caves, which do not have many sinkhole openings, inhale cold, heavy air during the winter, and on the slightest refractions of summer, heat and outward current exists. Thus, caves breathe twice a year. There are 17 caves in Indiana of considerable size and which have been explored. Others of great extent are either obstructed by water or eroded material, some of which will invite the future discovery. Many, however, pouring out brooks and rivers, will never be traversed by man. A small cave near Greencastle was explored by Professor DeMonte and John P. Reisner in November 1884. The entrance is through an aperture 2 feet in diameter, 10 feet from the surface. It has many rooms from 20 to 30 feet in diameter and long passways from a few feet to as many yards in height, and a cross section with a length of several hundred yards. Although unnoted and almost unknown, near the furthest end of the passage upon the wall, some one's name, very indistinct, was marked bearing the date which appeared to be 1830. There are many other names of later visitors, chiefly students of the university, inscribed upon the walls. There are several caves in Monroe County. One near Bloomington is made famous in the pioneer history of Indiana. It was decided that possibly some ravenous beast inhabited it. Perhaps no more graphic illustration of the incident could be given by the pencil of any artist than the pen and ink sketch or word painting of Professor Hall of the State University in his wonderful 7 Years in the New Purchase. No one can visit this point without recalling the picture of the brave explorer who, with his heart in his boots, faced the dangerous of the dread cavern. The other caves of this county have not been so well explored, but each of them has some story of mystery or romance. Owen County was once famous for its caverns. Owing to the large amount of water which flowed through them, the caverns have fallen in, making valleys for the pleasant streams in the great flat woods of the road between Spencer and Ellettsville. Cave Spring on the Rogers Farm, 5 miles north of Gosport, is a good example of underground drainage. Sinkholes are dotted all over the surface. These funnels collect the rainfall, which is carried by underground canals to the outlet. The spring flows from an open cavern 30 by 40 feet and 6 feet high, and plunges down a narrow chasm worn in the rock some 40 feet. The temperature of the external air in July was 92 degrees Fahrenheit of the cave, 71 degrees Fahrenheit, and in the gulch below the fall, the air was oppressively chilly. Miller's Cave, a short distance from the last mentioned cave, is surrounded by wild, canyon like scenery, romantic and interesting. The opening of the cavern is 40 feet wide and 4.5 or 5 feet high from 100 yards, where there is a room 7 feet wide and 15 feet high. Beyond the water is deep, and the roof descends to within a foot or two of the water. It has been traced by Charles Dow more than half a mile to its source in two funnel sinks, one in Morgan and the other in Owen County. In wet weather, the cavern is filled to its utmost capacity, and the water in the pool is then 25 feet deep, pouring out a furious torrent. In Lawrence County, a mile and a half southwest of Bedford, in Dunhue's Cave, the most extensive cavern known in the country. It has been explored through a space of 2 miles and is said to contain many beautiful stalactites, stalagmites, chambers, and corridors of considerable size. Shiloh Cave, 4 miles northwest of Bedford, is in the side of a sink whose funnel once collected the surface water and tunneled a passway thence southeast to Salt Creek, 3/4 of a mile's distance. A short, rugged slope gives entrance to a wide room, 30 feet in height. The moist air and the brook babbling over the floor justify the name of Wet Cave, by which it is sometimes known. Bewildered by darkness and the novelty of the situation, an oppressive awe startles the mind and ear as strange, mocking voices are cast up from the murky depths. A lofty corridor leads off in a southeasterly direction, the precipice sides of which show stratified beds of limestone and a record in ages past of an annual overflow. The echoing resonance increases as one proceeds, and soon a natural fountain is seen, which pours three jets of water, brightened with silvery foam, over an orifice near the roof, down upon the floor, from which a cloud of spray arises. Proceeding across the small brook, the lofty sides are draped and festooned with stalactites in rows, sometimes hanging in graceful clusters or ribbed with giant corrugations. Above, the roof and overhanging sides bristle with clear, quill like tubes, fragile as glass, each tipped with a drop of water which sparkles in the lamplight like a crystal jewel. For half a mile, the beauty and purity of ornamentation does not flag, although frequent crossings of the brooks, now of considerable size, make the way tedious. Here it leaps from a small precipice, a subterranean cataract with much report of falling water. The pond below blocks the way, but with waterproof boots, the southern outlet may be found a fourth of a mile beyond, near Salt Creek. Many side passages have been visited and will reward some future explorer. Near the middle of the cave was a stalagmite as large as a man's body, 5 feet high, named the image of Manitou. Some ruthless vandal has broken the statue and scattered the fragments on the floor. This cavern far exceeds Mammoth Cave in beauty, though only 1 mile has yet been explored. Its inhabitants, as noted by tracks, were raccoons, rats, and ant lions. Dry Cave is 6 miles northwest of Bedford. The door entrance is on the side of a hill, and the hall leaves thence in southeasterly direction, underrunning parts of two sections, and in communication with the intervening valley of the land of T.C. Cole and others, once probably formed a junction or continuation of Shiloh Cave. A narrow doorway opens into a lofty vestibule, with an arched dome 25 feet above the floor and a few stalactites upon the walls. Soon the cave is apparently closed. A monumental altar rises in the center of the passage, guarded round with pendant stalactites, which almost hide the tablet with their snow white shield. From these, a curtain scarce half an inch thick, dropped in graceful folds and caught in stone, is thrown across the passageway. The curtain is rent, broken by some sacrilegious hand. Immediately beyond, from a projecting cornice 10 feet above the floor, thousands of stalactites fringe either wall of the passage with a profusion of ornament. Behind the altar, a mighty stalagmite has grown up to support, like a pillar, the roof above. Beyond, one ascends by a ladder to an upper floor, where are many large, roomy halls with stalagmites and stalactites. The inhabitants of this cave are all seen animals. Grimstaff's Cave is about 10 miles northwest of Bedford. It consists of 2 stories or floors, the upper one dug, the lower one washed by a small stream of water. As yet, it is the only partially explored. Many passages have been entered at all. The portions already visited are reported to have an extent of more than 2 miles, and that the sides are ornamented with a variety of stalactites and other cave forms. Connelly's Cave is a mile and a half east of the village of Huron on the Ohio and Mississippi Road. It has its doorway at the foot of a hill. Its general course is from northwest to southeast. The roof is usually from 12 to 20 feet above the brook, which runs over the floor. The width is about the same. Many wide chambers were found, some of which were adorned with snowy curtains of stone supported by robust stalactites and pyramidal stalagmites. It is reported to have been explored a length of 2 miles. This cave was formerly frequented by the black bear, and his wallows and winter beds may be plainly seen. Besides seeing animals, it contains eyeless beetles, centipedes, crawfish, blindfish, etc. A large headed seen fish winters in the cave but goes out at the breeding season to the light and sunshine of summer. Spice Valley in Bryantsville, as situated, indicates an ancient cavern now fallen in near the residence of William Bryant, is a deep, unexplored opening having a known depth of 125 feet. Just below the Stump Hollow Ford of White River is the Buzzard or Saltpeter Cave, known to contain apartments on 2 floors. Blue Spring Cave on the south side of White River and 2 miles below Woods Ferry has been explored 3 miles. A large stream of water runs out, which is said to have cut basins within the cavern to a depth of more than 100 measured feet. The volume is greatly increased by rains or at a time of high water, and then its currents may be seen sweeping across the river into which it is just charged. Time did not allow me opportunity to explore, but it would be interesting to discover the source and extent of this cavern. Hammer's Cave, 2.5 miles east of Mitchell, has a doorway 45 feet above the valley. A main and narrow side entrance above shows an arch of good architectural effect. The floor is level, 6 feet wide, and covered with a swift stream of water, 8 inches deep, although at places the depth is increased to 20 feet. A boat, of course, is needed for exploration. 3/4 of a mile is a rapid fall. The whole stream rushes down an incline nearly 3 feet wide with great violence and fills the cave with noise. The boat must be carried above this obstacle, when another voyage is taken along a space of 300 feet to a second series of falls, the Grand Cascade. Beyond the cave is low, wet, and full of rushing water. Eyeless fish, crawfish, and other animals are found here. Donaldson's Cave is half a mile east of the last named and gives discharge to a large stream of water. It was used about the year 1800 for the manufacture of gunpowder made from the great supply of nitrous earth found in the upper chambers. Remains of the powder mill may be still seen. The entrance to the cave is wide and lofty, and following the central passageway, it is soon reduced to a narrow passage covered with a narrow stream of water. Exploration may be made by wading or in a light canoe. There is a magnificent cascade where the stream rushes and leaps down a narrow passage with such violence that the rumbling noise is heard at the entrance. The passageway is known to go through to Dalton Spring, 3/4 of a mile to the southeast. Near the entrance, a dug cave opens to the east. Directly opposite, a lofty corridor leads to the west, and in less than 100 feet enters a grand hall 12 feet high, 300 feet long, and 40 feet broad, with lofty roof. Lighted, this would make a novel and interesting lecture or assembly room. In the winter, thousands of bats gathered here to hibernate, like a swarm of bees suspended from the ceiling and sides. Eyeless fishes and animals are caught here. The cave shows signs of prehistoric inhabitants, as flints, stone axes, and bones have been found in numbers in and around the doorway. The caves of Harrison and Crawford counties will make a separate chapter. Winnedette Cave and those immediately adjacent are worthy of an entire volume. Yeah, um, indeed they are. And further on into the rest of the actual episode of Anomalous America, Indiana, we're going to talk quite a lot about Winnedette Cave. I'm going to get into some other articles about subterranean river systems and correlating the connection between many of these huge cave systems of the Mississippi Valley, and that in past ages they were all connected or are all still connected, but beyond the reach, as he stated, through water and debris clogging the path. And just further building the narrative, excuse me, just further building the idea in our heads about the hollowness in which we lie on, and um, constantly um, the subterranean ocean of Kentucky is what comes to mind. That we have this honeycombed layer that rests on top of a subterranean ocean full of eyeless sharks and eyeless whales. And yeah, the subterranean world is incredible indeed. And I just keep thinking of the inside of trees. And then these caverns are just parts of these um, veins. And yeah, the water being a huge correlation to this, but also, the minerals and, the saltpeter and these other things that have been harvested, coal playing a huge um, factor in this. Um, I plan on doing a whole series on coal and the history of it, its mining, its original uses, the geological correlations, the 17 and early 1800 explanations of coal, its origins, um, the creation of some of these magnificent coal beds in America that cover hundreds and hundreds of square miles and are anywhere from 1 to 300 feet thick. And that when they sliced these coal beds and started using the microscope, they're just seeing giant leaves, tropical trees, and yeah, some kind of cataclysm or several are responsible for these coal beds. But that for another time. So, not a lot of, really juicy discoveries, but I wanted to highlight this article as it builds a picture of the n- sheer stupendous size of these cavern systems, and that, as they stated, that a large part of Indiana, the entire southern part of Indiana, is crisscrossed with huge cavernous systems, some explored, some not. And in another article, we're going to correlate underground rivers that connect the Mammoth Caves with many of the caves of the Mississippi Valley and the caves in southern Indiana and on into New York, as they stated. But yeah, I'm glad I could get this one on the books, and I hope you enjoyed it. Um, Stay tuned for more, as always. And yeah, I appreciate you all. Look forward to your comments on this one. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.